I'm back with another Walking Dead video, and the fanboy's back at his 4 all-time high. So it's time for me to get off into this review. And you already know, this episode right here was about who else? My girl Michonne. So, I got no choice but to represent for her. Oh yeah, baby. This the real deal. This the real Michonne katana blade right here for some of you who wonder. I had to get this. On the expensive side, but I had to get it. So let's get started with this review. But first, let me take a sip off my new Walking Dead cup. Make sure y'all get this, man. The Walking Dead mug with Rick Grimes on it. Damn, water never tastes so good until I drink it out this mug. Ooh, Lord. Let's get started. Okay. Like I say, I think I said this previous about this episode. A lot of people was complaining about this episode, saying that it didn't have enough action, and some of the stuff in this episode was off. And I kind of agree with that. But here is one thing you cannot deny about this episode. This episode had great characterization. I mean, flawless characterization. I mean, the writing for Michonne's background was fucking genius. This what I'm talking about, people. When I always said this, I want to see them open up more stuff about Michonne. I wanted them to do this, and they finally delivered on that. Now, I'm going to talk about Michonne's origins, her backstory first, that we got to see in this episode. And we got to see her husband, because in this episode it's revealed that Michonne is married. We got to see her husband Mike, and we got to see her best friend Terry. And we also got to see Michonne's son in this episode. And I kind of came up. I kind of came up with something, because something wasn't sitting right with me about Mike's demeanor in this episode. I think it's possible that Mike committed suicide. And I'm going to give you some pretty good some pretty good reasons why I think Mike might have committed suicide. And also, by him doing this, he might have took his son, him and Michonne's son, with him while doing this. So, let's get started. Now, in the kitchen, we seen the scene with Michonne. We also seen the scene with Mike and Terry in the kitchen. Like I say, this scene right here was Michonne's origins, her backstory, giving us a more in-depth detail of who Michonne was before the outbreak occurred. And we can see Terry talking to Mike. And I wrote down the dialogue from that scene. And he tells, because like I say, in that dream, the dream was good at first. She was having a good dream, but then the dream transforms into a nightmare. And I love the way they did that. And back to what I was saying about that dream. We seen them having a decent conversation, but like I said, then that dream begins to take change. And while Terry is talking to Mike, they start talking about the camp. And it's revealed to us as the viewers that Michonne, Terry, and Mike and her son was living in a camp after the outbreak happened. And as a viewer, I didn't even know this. And Terry looks at Mike and he tells Mike, I don't think that we should stay at this camp. And Mike looks back at Terry and he tells him, I'm not taking my son out there. I don't know if this place will work or not. But, he says, but, I know it won't if we go out there. And then I think, and then Mike goes on to say, after he says that, what I just said, he says, does it even matter anymore? And at this point, I start to realize something. Mike starts to give up hope. And let me say, I'm getting a little serious with y'all and throw a little stuff up in here. Listen, man, us as humans, we survive. What motivates us is will, determination, and hope. And if we don't got that, we question ourselves. Why are we living? And sometimes that leads to committing suicide. Like I just said, we get our that off of three factors: will, determination, and hope. And I think Mike somehow he lost that. I really think Mike lost that. I really think Mike gave the will up to live. Because like I say, in that conversation, you can tell that he seen no hope in a zombie apocalypse. He didn't see no hope. The hope wasn't there no more. He was tired of fighting. And some people think, well, people in the Walking Dead, some people think that committing suicide is the best way of getting out that situation. Dr. Jenner said it, like when he talked to Rick. He was telling Rick, sure, go ahead and stay. The CDC lab is going to blow up any time now. It doesn't matter. You won't feel no pain. It's going to blow up and we are going to die. So some people just give the will up to live, and some people just think by them killing themselves is the best way out of the situation, and they don't have to live and suffer like that anymore. And that's what I'm talking about when I said in one of my reviews, in order to be human, you have to suffer. And a lot of people question me on that and saying, well, we are human. Listen, when I say this, physically, we are human beings. But mentally, we have to think on the human being complex. I mean, like Danai, the actress who played Michonne, she said it best. Michonne came back to being human again. On Talking Dead, she said this. And that's why I'm saying, us as human, we have to embrace suffering. And that's what Michonne did in this episode. She fought her inner demons, and she fought all that stuff, her past, what she was trying to run away from, and she embraced it. And therefore, by her embracing it, it allowed her to have it allowed her to be human, to think human. Of course, we're human beings. But like I said before, I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about mentally, in terms of thinking. So therefore, she was human again because she fought her inner demons, and she embraced that fear that she used to run away from about her past. And she did it in this episode, and that was so beautiful. So beautiful. She was able to conquer her own fears by herself. And that was genius. So back to what I was saying about the review. I got off a little topic right there. But back to what I was saying about what Mike was talking about. And like I say, you can tell he was giving up hope with the conversation, the way the conversation was going. And then he asks Michonne, he says, are we just kidding ourselves? And basically meaning, are we just kidding ourselves by living? Why are we still living? What purpose do we have to still be living in this type of world? And then Terry tells Michonne, you have got good with a sword. You know that. And then after Terry tells Michonne that she have got good with a sword, Mike still don't have that hope. Because he looks at Terry, he tells Terry, and no. Terry says, you know that makes, but then he kind of stopped. and pretty much saying that she's useful because she learned how to wield a katana sword, so that made her useful. And like I say, some people just can't fight in that world to survive. Some people just get tired of living, and like I say, they commit suicide. So back to what I was saying. So after Terry tells Michonne about the sword, Mike looks at Terry and he says, pretty much, like I say, he loses hope because he tells Terry pretty much she learned how to use a sword for nothing, because he tells Terry for what? After he tells her about learning how to use a katana sword. And then Mike says, what are we going for? Where's the happy ending here? This isn't life. This isn't, and he said, this isn't life. This isn't anything close to it, okay? Not for me, not for us, and not for our son. What's the answer here? And then Terry says, he looks at Mike and pretty much asks him, what's the damn question, Mike? What are you trying to ask him? Because, like I say, at this point, Mike is really questioning his existence now. And then, Mike, and then Terry, and then that's when Mike looks at Michonne. He asks her, why? Why still live? And this right here, the scene that I seen again after this scene happened, this scene really had me thinking about Mike committing suicide, because you can see when Michonne goes into that barbecue shack, it's a guy named Joe Jr. Now, Joe Jr. is killed by Carl, because you see Rick and Carl confront Joe Jr. after he's transformed into a zombie or a whopper. And on that paper, Joe Jr. wrote, please, he writes, please do what I couldn't. Meaning that somehow Joe probably got bitten, but he couldn't bring himself to killing it. He couldn't bring himself into killing himself, committing suicide. So he chose to turn. And you can see when Michonne sees when Michonne sees that sign on the ground, she literally falls down and just sits down, and she says, Mike, I miss you. I miss you even, she says, I miss you even when I was with you back at the camp. It wasn't you who did it. So that makes me wonder, because at that camp, it's pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that, like I say, we heard some audio in that flashback of Michonne when we seen Mike talking, and I'm pretty sure that audio of him talking came from when Mike was in the camp, and you can see him talking the same way as when he was in that camp. And at that point, Michonne didn't recognize who Mike was. That's the reason why she said, I miss you even when I was with you, because that wasn't the same Mike she was with. He started to change. He started to let that world consume him. And also when she said, back at the camp, it wasn't you who did it, pretty much I'm thinking he probably killed their son. Something happened, or he could have killed Terry. I'm thinking, yes, and I think Mike probably committed suicide, because also, I forgot to read this in the dialogue, Mike didn't even want to leave that camp. Because remember, I'm going to read it again. Terry tells Mike, I don't think that we should stay at this camp. Mike replies back, I'm not taking my son out there. Again, I'm not taking my son out there. I don't know if this place will work out or not, but I know I won't. He says, I know it won't if I go out there. So he wasn't taking his chances. So, man, it's just something just telling me I could be assuming wrong. Okay, after we see Michonne sit down, she says, you were wrong because I'm still here. And I'm pretty sure Mike told her on plenty of occasions, you know what, Michonne, even though you know how to use a katana blade, that don't mean you still gonna make it out. I'm pretty sure he told her that plenty of times because he didn't have no hope. So of course he was gonna put her down and tell her she wasn't gonna make it. And then we can see that it's obvious he told her this before because she pretty much tells him that he was wrong. Because like I said before, she says, because I'm still here. And she says, you could have been too. And when she said that, I'm like, something ain't right here. He did something. And then she says, he could, and then she says, he could have been. He could be. When she says he could be, after she says about Mike, you could have been too, I'm thinking about their son. This had to be something like optional. Like I said, this had to be a suicide. And she says, I know the answer. And when she says, I know the answer, I think she meant by that, by saying pretty much that she was on that verge, just like he was, of losing her hope. Because obvious, Danai said it in this episode that Michonne was on the verge of losing her hope. And she felt bad for letting her guard down, And she also got to that point where she didn't want to open up again like she used to, where how she was when we seen her in season 4, how she was open with Carl and Rick now and the rest of the people at the group. And that's the reason why I said, when Michonne said that I know the answer now, it makes sense to her now. Because at first she didn't feel like, she didn't have that same mindset as Mike. She was stronger. She had a stronger mindset than Mike, and she seeked opportunity in that type of world. But now she see how he did feel when he was alive, and now she's like a better witness to this trauma. And now she can see why he committed why he probably did what he did at that camp. And she says, after that, she says, I know why. So, yeah, it pretty much makes sense now. So, with this episode, the rest of this episode pretty much consists of Rick and Carl. And at this point, Carl becomes a pragmatic character, a pragmatic human being. We do have pragmatic human beings in this world. And one of the symptoms that come with being pragmatic is hard-headed. And we definitely got to see Carl being hard-headed in this episode, just like Shane was. What a lot of people don't realize is Shane was a pragmatic character. A pragmatic character is pretty much a person that comes up with their own ideologies on how the world should work, and pretty much taking matters into their own hand. And Carl finally becomes that, but then he finally realized that he can't do everything by himself. He needs Rick there. He needs help. In order to build a community, it takes communication. You can't do it all by yourself. And at one point you get tired of being lonely. That's the reason why I think Michonne also found them, because like I say, she actually built a relationship with them. And like I say, once she embraced that suffering, and she realized who she was, that right there allowed her to become human again, mentally, not physically. Okay, I'm going to say it again. So, we saw Carl and Rick definitely, they got into it in this episode a lot. And also in this episode, Rick got sick. He got real sick. And he pretty much was knocked out. And at this point, I ain't think he was going to die because I read the comic books, but he shook back. But like I say, Carl finally realized how it was to be alone. Truly this time, to not have Rick in his corner, and he couldn't deal with it. But I do like Carl, because Carl did, I did like the scene when Carl went into the room and he saw the Xbox 360 and the boy had toys, and now you can see how that kid came back out of him again. And that was just amazing to me. And the putting stuff, I didn't really care about that. And when he told Rick about Shane, this right here pretty much sums it up, that Rick still thinks about his best friend, because he tells Carl, I think about it every day, because after Carl takes that HDMI cable, he wraps it up on the door, he says, Shane taught me this. He say, remember him? And Rick say, I do. I think about him every day. That is Rick's best friend. Of course, he's going to think about Shane every day. He hate he ever did that to Shane, but he didn't have no choice. It's all about survival of the fittest. And they'll say that the best. And next, we got a few deaths. We got Hershel, who I said head was gonna be reanimated, and Michonne stuck back to kill him, whatever, because she felt guilt. Not even guilt, but she was real sad about what happened, and she know it was her katana blade used to decapitate his head. And next, we found out that Michonne's horse, Flame, got killed. You can see the insides. Well, there wasn't even any inside of the horse left. It was completely gone. The zombies ate everything out the horse. The horse is dead. That was her favorite horse. We lost the governor. Now, this right here pretty much confirmed the governor is dead. We seen him laying there dead. I was surprised that no zombies eat him, because, I don't know, you can see like little marks around his neck. Them couldn't have been no hand marks from Rick when he was choking him at first, because I didn't see those marks around his neck. It looked like little bite marks, but I don't see why a whole bunch of zombies wasn't eating him. Pretty sure a lot passed by him. He was still fresh. And one of the best scenes of this episode is when Michonne finds Rick and Carl. I was like, wow. I mean, when she broke down and started crying, what a lot of people didn't realize, those was tears of joy. Because the relationship she built with them. And I love when Rick had sent Carl to the door, because the relationship that Carl and Michonne has is amazing. I mean, she was literally going out her way to get comic books for him. She was getting him anything that was available that she could find for him on her horse Flame. And they built a relationship. Hell, he was even one of the people that suggested that Michonne was a good person, and that she was compatible or capable of being part of the group. He told Rick about this in season 3, episode 12, titled "Play with Morgan Jones" in it. So yeah, they definitely built a relationship. So I think I pretty much touched on everything. Wasn't too much this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a nice day. Download the video. Come and rate. Peace and have a blessed day.